Welcome to this panel discussion called Artistic Exploration in Shared Hybrid Spaces. My name is Sinta Wieringa. I'm an artist and researcher at the Ars Electronica Future Lab. For those of you that don't know the Future Lab, it's the research institute that is part of the Ars Electronica, where we do applied artistic research. We engage in research with external partners, or like we are going to talk today, we are engaging in research within large European research projects. So that is what we're going to talk about today. The project is called Sharespace. A bit later, I will explain what exactly it is. But today we are joined by artists that have collaborated with this project over the last year, and we are going to talk about their art pieces that they've developed, about their artistic processes, about their concepts. So I will quickly introduce them to you. On my right here, I have dear co-workers of mine. So first we have Johannes Pul, who is a lead designer and artist at the Future Lab, has worked a lot with audiovisual experiences in deep space, and has also been teaching about these topics. So thank you for joining us, Johannes. Then we have another co-worker from the Future Lab, so there's Patrick Berger, who is also a lead designer and artist, and over the last year has also worked in immersive environments, has done VR, XR projects about cultural heritage and ATNS you worked, so thank you very much for joining as well. And then what was also very special about this project is that we collaborated with external artists through an open call. So that is the artist team that you see here on the side. So we have Tara from Tehran with an academic background in film and mathematics and law and philosophy, and is really trying to bring critical ideas about this Euro-colonial-centric ideas. So thank you very much for joining us, Tara. Then we have Harriet, who is a 3D artist and art director based in Berlin, and is a very talented animation artist and working with virtual avatars that, I'm trying to work with gender non-conforming bodies to, bring critics to the male-dominated gaming industry. So thank you very much for joining, Harriet. And lastly, we have Matthew, who is a digital artist and a game developer specializing in digital performance and virtual reality, has done very great, interesting works, like working for the Madonna's World Tour, and has a lot of work exhibited all over Europe and internationally. So thank you for joining us as well. So today I will first give you a very short introduction into what the Sharespace project is, and then each of the artists will give an individual presentation about what their artwork has been, and then we will have a general discussion about their works. So I will start the presentation. That's already happening. Great, thank you. I have to do the slides, of course. Great. So, as I mentioned before, Sharespace is a Horizon Europe research project. Horizon Europe is the funding agency from the European Commission, and it's aiming to look at digital embodied collaboration. So what exactly embodied collaboration means, I will explain later on. But it's trying to develop novel XR technologies to enhance collaboration in digital spaces. It's been a very international and interdisciplinary collaboration. We have 14 partners all over Europe. We have industry partners, we have hospitals, we have universities who are doing scientific research, and then you have people like us who are doing this applied research. And I will very shortly try to explain to you the core of this, because it's based on 2 proof of principles. These are basically scientific principles that we are trying to research, and then 3 real-world scenarios. So we're trying to test these in 3 applied cases. So just very quickly to elaborate, what is embodied collaboration? It means that you have a body in a digital space. So you're using virtual humans or you're using avatars. This is a very core part of the project. And we are trying to research the collaboration between humans and avatars in these, what they are called shared hybrid spaces. However, we're not necessarily focusing on collaboration through speech, through talking to each other, but we are really focused on movement. So how can we collaborate through movement in these digital spaces, utilizing avatars and real human beings? So I will try not to get too technical about what these proof of principles are, but they are very important to understand how these artists came up with their concepts. So the first proof of principle is synchronization and social connectedness, and it's based on this idea that if you move together and you're moving in synchrony with people, you feel more connected to them. And we are trying to research if this effect translates in these shared hybrid spaces. So if we move in synchrony amongst humans and avatars, do we feel more connected to each other and do we feel more connected to them? Then the second one is called amplification, and this is largely a bit more technical, but basically there's a lot of social information encoded in the way that we move. I think a very good example is, if you look at the movements of a person grabbing a glass, you can already tell if a person is going to drink or you're going to pour the glass. So what this project is trying to do is it's trying to recognize this social information that is encoded in a movement, and it's trying to say if we amplify this, if we recognize it and we amplify it in a digital space, will this improve the collaboration that we have with people? So synchronization and amplification are core concepts. And then, like I said, we are trying to introduce these concepts in 3 real-world scenarios. So the first one has been the XR rehabilitation of people with chronic low back pain. We're trying to see if we treat people in a virtual space with avatars that really represent them, can we improve this rehabilitation? And this has been a usability study, and over the summer it has been presented at the ISP 2024 World Congress of Pain. Then the second application has been focused on sports. It's an XR application that is for cycling, and it's trying to teach people to recognize when a cyclist is engaging in an attack. I think it's kind of a sprint. So can we train cyclists to recognize this moment by amplifying the information? So this study has been presented at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. We had a booth the whole time at the Olympic Games where people were testing out this application. And today we are mostly here to talk about the artistic exploration of the Sharespace concept. So one of the things that the project really wanted to do is free explore in an XR environment what these concepts can do by developing artworks for the Deep Space 8K, so the virtual environment that we have at the Ars Electronica Center. So out of there came 3 artworks that we have developed. So one is Converge, and it's been developed by Patrick. One is called Falcon Heavy, it's been developed by Johannes, and one is called State of Play, and it's been developed by an external artist team. So without further ado, I think I would like to give the word first to Patrick, who's going to explain a little bit about his piece, Converge.
Yeah, exactly. So I was mainly inspired by this concept of embodied collaboration, meaning kind of, and also the aspects how groups communicate without vocal communication, just by movement and body language towards a common goal. As my background also comes from doing drone shows, so animating swarms, I was also a bit interested in this in like a crowd aspect and recognizing avatars if they're using the movement from an actual person from outside of a crowd. Main inspirations style-wise were from Gilbert Cassin because of his kind of surrealistic qualities, Sean Mundy because of his nice focus on crowds and also sometimes body parts and the focus on this silhouette type of style. But I guess the main inspiration was from Mario Rickenbach, who has developed a really nice app where you control huge amounts of crowds and solve some situations with these crowds. And in terms of interaction, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible to make the audience and the local kind of participants in Deep Space 8K understand as much as possible without commenting and to kind of solve the situations by themselves. And as such, one of the biggest inspirations was the cooperative aesthetics pieces by Dr. Gerhard Funk and others. Basically, it consists of a live motion captured remote player. So the the silhouette is directly streamed to this large central avatar. The crowds in the back are NPCs, and they all want to run towards the holes to the left and right of the motion captured avatar, and they're basically unstoppable. The holes move under the hands of the motion captured person, and the ones with the force fields are like the the local players in Deep Space. You can control those people, those avatars as a local player. So if we skip a bit further. Yeah, so this is the remote-controlled avatar, and the main goal of this was to kind of tickle out how you can create situations that are kind of self-explanatory, that the audience has to communicate, or the participants in this experience, they have to communicate to solve these situations. So in the beginning, what you see here is a very simple situation where you need to kind of move this liquid from the left to the right, but it only moves to the kind of common position of all the players. So if one person is somewhere else, then it won't move, and people have to collaborate by their movements to solve this situation. And on the right, you see these little spots. These are revealed, and you have to kind of grab one of those, join together, and thus also the title Converge. The blobs then merge together and solve this situation, revealing then the last crowd situation. This is how it looks in Deep Space, and if we skip one slide further, these are just some impressions where, yes, one of the important aspects as well is kind of, as you can see here, yeah, the more NPCs fall in the holes, the larger the holes get. And the local players, they get force fields deterring the local the NPCs. So the goal really is to help together. There's no verbal communication between the people in Deep Space and the remote motion captured person. So just going by the body language and the movements of the people in Deep Space, they need to work together to be able to fend off these crowds of people, preventing them falling into the holes, or essentially saving them. And saving the motion captured person from falling in. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And I think the next piece that we're going to talk about is from Johannes.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, yeah, Falcon Heavy, weird title. It also has an asterisk there. Short story, this is because when we're doing projects in the Future Lab, we often give them a working title in the beginning to just refer to something, and I never changed it. So it's called Falcon Heavy, and it doesn't have to do anything with Falcon Heavies. I'm coming from music, from VJing, from doing live music, Electronica, and being in sync in music. Playing in a band together is one of the biggest things, the underlying task of making great music. And one of the principles of Sharespace was about synchronicity. And I thought maybe I could bring that to Deep Space. So basically, it's a super simple principle. There are like inputs, tasks, and goals. As input, the person itself, the location of the person in the deep space is one of the inputs. And the persons also have sensors in their hands, little tiny motion sensors, which also act as inputs, which derives data from how you move them. And maybe the next slide.
Yep.
So within Deep Space, you embody then a melody, a sound. Everything you do in Deep Space is related to a visual or auditive clue or a sample. And how you move in the Deep Space changes that. And basically, what we are trying to do here is to create musical structures, beats, rhythms together in a group with their movement and their synchronicity. So they have these sensors, they are tracked in the space, and the visual representation on the wall is like there is some entity which is kind of interacting with your movements and your synchronicity. So this is kind of the marker if you are in sync or if you are not in sync. And you have to move into certain constellations and fulfill movement patterns together to kind of change the audio-visual quality of the deep space application. So together you create melodic rhythm and structure. And I would like to invite you to come on Friday in the evening into the deep space where you could play Falcon Heavy together and make some music and maybe dance together.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. And then, like I mentioned before, last year we had an open call for artists. So we wrote a very long document. We tried to describe as best as possible what Sharespace was about. And we asked artists who would be interested in creating a piece with us. And we're very happy that we had this beautiful project selected. So without further ado, I would like to give the word to them to explain a bit of their experiences.
Is it? It's on. Okay. Yeah, we answered the call. Saw this, and previously I had worked alongside, but without knowing at the time, with Tara. We never met until the end of a project, and Matti. We had competed against each other in a hackathon, and so these two incredible artists, we'd been in a lot of the same circles, but never had the chance to work together. And so, yeah, we saw this open call, brought each other together and thought this is really perfect for us. And we've created State of Play Sharespace. It is at its core an incredible story that Tara will talk about, but it's also a video game. It is anyone in the audience is a gamer by any chance? People know World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy. Think a big boss raid of lots of people working together to fight or to survive against one big entity. And at its core, that is the game mechanic. We can go to the next slide already.
Hi, first of all, thank you for your time. I will just very briefly touch on two things. So this piece is basically decolonizing two aspects of everything in the world, like everything you do. Usually when you're expert at something, when you're good at something, when you know about something a little too good for your own good, the best thing you can hope for yourself is to be booked and to be involved in other people's, greater people's works. And what happens usually is that these labors are not being necessarily fairly addressed to. So I think this collaboration just shows how an intersection of expertises that usually would not mean can make magic. So this is just a formal and a structural decolonization, I think, of the whole game industry. But this game, it's a video game, but everything in this game, visually, sound, forms, colors, order of things, has a historical meaning. It has a reference which is very responsible and basically thinking big and making history. Nothing is random. Nothing is just artistic freedom for nothing. It must be founded something somehow. And this game involves every aspect of our own interests and focus and obsession. So I think just the only thing I want to say is that this collaboration was for me, I think, one of the first, like it was my first collaboration. It just means that when you're alone and you're focused on your own thing, you're not expert, you have a disability, and you need to have complementary factors that give it a shape. So this is Sharespace, and you're super welcome to see it tonight, 6:30. Yes. And tomorrow. It's tonight. Yeah. So this is my part. And
Hi, I'm going to touch a little bit on what Sharespace actually is. So as Harriet mentioned, we're deconstructing this boss fight motif in games, which is super popular and super familiar to all the gamers, but also it's kind of a motif that summarizes the story for the games. It's always this final moment of checking, of testing our abilities, of how we learned how we captured the story. And this is also a moment where we meet Rostam, which is the main character of this performance, and he's also at the end of his story because as the intro of the game it mentions, Rostam has to go through 6 labors. So we're meeting Rostam at the end of 7th labor. Yeah. And Rostam is a character that is going to be embodied by you, the players, hopefully, if you're going to come to the performance. And you're going to be able to take part in this boss raid experience, which is a participative performance. So you players are going to be able to craft the story and learn the mechanics and being able to finish or change the story of Rostam from the one that we know from the epic Iranian poem.
Great, thank you so much. So one more time as a reminder, the performances for Conversion Falcon Heavy will be together in 1 hour tomorrow from 7 to 8 at Deep Space. You can register online. And the State of Play has 2 performance times. One is tonight from 6:30 to 7:30, and one is on Saturday morning from 10:30 to 11:30. So thank you all for your presentations, and I think now we can start in a bit more general discussion. So my first question being that, so this art scenario within the Sharespace project was really meant to be this bottom-up exploration. So we kind of, as artists, got free reign to do with it what we want, but there were so many moving parts. You have the synchronization, you have the amplification, you have the avatars. So what is then your process as an artist to look at all these moving parts and then come up with your concept? Maybe someone from the Future Lab wants to start?
Yes, it was very tricky to kind of zero in on one thread to follow, to be honest, because there are so many different aspects. For me, one of the main things was this recognition, so how to identify someone just based on their movements. And this is also very, especially the concept of amplification. So if someone has a particular way of moving and you can amplify that, that definitely would help to identify someone from, for example, a crowd of people like I have in my piece. Yeah. Maybe someone else.
Yeah. Johannes, maybe?
So for my piece, I just wanted to create something visual in the beginning, and the Sinter then came to me and said, hey, the people that are doing the research for synchronicities saw your first concept and they thought it would really good map onto this topic of synchronicity. So in this kind of concept phase, we then came up with shifting from the visuals more to the auditive, to the synchronization, to this kind of things. So it was a natural process, kind of.
Great. And I think the question, it's the same question for you, but maybe slightly different, because for you, you are independent artists coming together, reading this call, and then thinking this is the right one for me to apply to. So can you maybe explain a bit about that process?
I think it was the first open call I've ever seen where it was like a checklist of things that matched our skill set and also works that we had already produced. Matti and I have been working independently through a lot of virtual performances, motion capture performances. I work solely with avatars by myself. And I was reading this open call and I reached out to both of them and I said, guys, if this wasn't built for us, I don't know what is. And we came together, we brainstormed a lot, and then it just made sense from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because has your concept been Because that is something that Johannes just described, that you have this initial idea and then it changes throughout the process by getting more and more piece of information later on. So was that also the case for you guys?
I think what's interesting with this piece is that Harriet and Matty already had their own mental collaboration in the future already fixed, that they had blocked this in their future together, and they knew they were going to be working together on a piece which is maybe a boss fight, right? Or just some interactive, Unreal Engine based or something very, very, actually very complex. And it was only the medium though. It's just a medium. It doesn't have a soul yet. It doesn't mean anything yet. Yeah, so okay, so game, and then, so, okay, we're gonna do, okay, and then. And my way of coming up with concepts is usually, okay, we have all these tools, and then, who is gonna be interested in that, what are we gonna do? And Harriet is actually the one who taught me about the fact that game industry is ruled by one specific genre of people, and that's very, very harmonic, like everyone is alike. And it's usually very successful, very commercially driven, companies who do great job, and it's very inspiring. But if you're a little bit bottom-up thinker, you're overwhelmed with this kind of approach to game design. And Harriet was like, what if it was real gamers who develop games that are actually functional? And my way was like, what if we do a game that is not colonizing other people's cultures, and then we're doing Prince of Persia, but actually a Persian person is doing the concept of the game without being booked to be paid a little bit and then being kept quiet. So it's a very fair distribution of knowledge and of skills that I myself have never seen before. Meow.
Great. Mate, do you have anything to add to it?
I'm good, I think you said it.
Okay, perfect. Then I want to very quickly touch upon, within Sharespace in general, there is a very strong focus on ethic development of technology. It's utilizing this new methodology called ethics by design, where kind of an ethics team is involved from the get-go and throughout the project and throughout the development, instead of finishing technology and then thinking about the ethics later. So I think you and also Johannes have engaged in interviews with an ethics team, and I was wondering if you could maybe share some thoughts or your ideas about this.
It's something that you, in my opinion, always have to think of when you're working with emerging technologies, is if the artists are not thinking about why we are progressing or why we are doing certain things, then, I mean, the tech bros are not thinking about it. So that falls on us, unfortunately. And yeah, we had some really interesting chats, both internally in our team and also with the ethics team from Sharespace. I mean, I think Tara has probably some more to add.
The ethic part was of great value to myself as an individual, but also as a collaborator with Matty and Harriet, because again, a lot of things are being decided or being envisioned and actualized in a lot of works and pieces. But when you ask someone, why did you choose the color blue? Why did you choose this form? Why did you choose this order of events? And the artist is like, oh, it's meow. Okay. and sometimes, especially in this broad projects, people have no answers to that, and they go, it's random. It doesn't mean anything. We just artistic freedom. I just was interested in Persian carpets in Linz, and you're like, actually, your options are limited. You're not allowed to use everything. Nothing is just random. And you are allowed to do everything you want, but you should be also able to explain and talk about why your choices were the way they were. And in this ethic interview, it was such an, I don't know, it was such a life-changing experience to see an external force asking me, why is it of great value that we care about these things? And I felt so comfortable talking about these things. And another, just one thing I would like to add is that great ideas are not great because a genius came up with them or some sort of out of virtuous artist, Da Vinci, just decided to be great at something. It just needs resources, and it needs support and protection and care. And this is what Ars Electronica and Sharespace provided for us, because except this part, this scenario, I don't know how we would work. Probably the same quality, but 5 years longer in development.
Thank you. And Johannes, do you have anything to share about how that was for you?
The ethics thing? I was super dismissive of it in the beginning. I was like, why? Why should I care? I do my thing. I'm an artist. But then I had these discussions and these talks with the team, and it was also kind of eye-opening that you can think about what you're doing and how that influences maybe people in the future, or how the technology influences people.
So I think I kind of want to talk a bit about now maybe this idea of embodied collaboration or XR or making art in these interactive spaces, because for those of you that don't know, the Deep Space 8K is at the Ars Electronica Center. It's a 4K stereoscopic, 8K, sorry, a stereoscopic projection wall. You can make interactive pieces, so it's a very immersive space. So when thinking about embodied collaboration, thinking about making these artworks that are based on movement, what do you think is really the added value of presenting it in such a space, or how does it transform the way that people engage with art?
Deep space is it's a very specific space, and it's a hard space to work with, I would say. Especially, so from the beginning we decided we want to do this participative performance that is, you as a player, you interact with the game, you play the game, right? So Deep Space as an interface like proposes many challenges, because as Patrick mentioned, you have to translate the movement of people in the space as some form of a controller. Like you have to like translate them to the screen to make them understand what are their movements. And we want to tell the story. We want to tell the story through the game medium, and this is very specific medium. It's really based on immersion and how strongly you can immerse and become the character that you're embodying. And you tell the story in the games through the game mechanics, right? And people have to learn those mechanics. And from the studies that I know, people don't necessarily learn under the stress. And the Deep Space, as a very specific space, like it's really challenging, because like obviously people are watching you around. You're at this stage. You're crafting that performance in real time. You're participating in it. How do you learn something without being stressed, being watched? So this was like main challenge for me as a when I was designing the mechanics. And how do we fight them? Hopefully we dealt with that. We dealt with that kind of successfully. We crafted this entire character that guides you through the entire experience, so not to spoil anything. Yeah, that's challenging. Comments?
Yeah. And maybe you can share some of your, because you have worked with the Deep Space already for many years and are familiar with the space. So what is your view on it?
Well, I mean, one additional large benefit of the Deep Space is obviously the audience that is maybe not directly partaking in the interaction of the game itself. So it is such an immersive space that you can really basically generate or create experiences for, I think, up to 100 people, or how many people fit in there, that can in some way also kind of participate, or at least watch and then come back and do the same thing themselves. Or yeah, so in theory the tracking would take even more people. It's just such a nice canvas for trying to create new experiences, and seeing how, as Martin mentioned, in the under pressure situations, because it is nearly always a performative situation. People communicate with each other in the space itself, and sometimes with people on the other side of the screen. So from that aspect, it's a really nice, let's say, petri dish of creating a scenario and then watching how people kind of find their way through it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add, Hansi?
Hansi? Yeah, sure. For me, the Deep Space is all about field of vision, it's like this huge area. It's 9 by 16 meters on the floor and on the wall, and it enables you to don't see the borders anymore. You're like inside of this visual, and this is so massive, magical, that it creates this really interesting medium where you can be part of it.
Yeah. Add one thing to. Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I'm not a developer, I don't know anything about technology, but for me, Sharespace was itself an amplification of Persian miniature paintings. Because if you look at the Shahnameh, which this piece is based on, basically, there are always like basically you're looking from outside of a fourth wall into scene, and there's narratives and there's text, and it's actually a transparent script itself. So it's visual, it's literature, and it's dimensions, and you have orders. So Deep Space itself, I saw it as an amplification of one page of Shahnameh and the characters that Harriet developed and the whole environment and the landscape that Mati developed in Unreal Engine is another level of amplification of the Persian mythology in Ferdowsi's Shahnameh. So I just think that all of these amplifications or all of these approaches to Sharespace have equal value in at the end of the day, basically together. Yeah.
Yeah. So to kind of stay on this topic, maybe of these new emerging XR technologies, or yeah, this embodied collaboration, or maybe the use of avatars. Having now worked with this over the last couple of months, what are your personal opinions on how you see this develop in the future? Have you maybe in your own environment experienced artists working more and more with this, or how do you see this bringing kind of new potential to media art?
I have an answer.
Yeah, go for it, of course.
Yeah. Okay, I'm super enthusiastic about this work because I come from a very boring definition of art, which is very, very specific. It's this narrow, and it's gallery, and it's art fairs, and it's extremely narrow definition of art. And I had to learn to expand my definition of art, working with greater artists than I actually have known before in these areas, electronical and tech-based pieces. And when I see this intersection of production in collaboration, it just blows my mind that we tend to usually not go there because we think it's not fitting into the specific definition of art. And we already see how the perception of art is changing, and we already see video games being shown in museums. We saw one in Lentos yesterday, or in art fairs, foundations, and this is of great value. And I am a very manual person. I write poetry, but I think at the end of the day, this XR, XR, like everything non-manual just adds to the value of individuals and biographies and identities of people beyond their identification, but who they are. And I think it's something that I would like to explore more within this kind of collaboration in the future.
For me personally, games are the medium of the future, to be honest. And what Deep Space allows is it gives you that interactivity. So you can become immersed in a story, and as opposed to movies and video mediums where you sort of have to empathize with the character, you have to root for them and understand their motivations. In games, you become the character, you craft the story of your own, and Deep Space allows that on another level. Kind of like Johannes mentioned, it's just, the screen is so huge, you become part of this story, you are in this world. It's kind of hard to get out of that. And the possibilities of the story crafting within this medium that combines all the other mediums and adds to that. And it's just overwhelming, and it's really exciting. Like, it's never ending for me.
Yeah, maybe to add to the whole Sharespace concept is I'm an artist, and the deep space is a really tricky technical infrastructure. And what we are trying to do within the Sharespace project is to create interfaces for artists or for people, for the democratization of actually making stuff like this in these spaces, which is normally only done by super high technical people, and or these people are helping, like Daniel, who is sitting here in the and it enables artists and people to create these huge artworks.
Maybe one thing to add. There was a talk here earlier where one aspect was mentioned that I really liked, namely one big thing missing in XR, or like broadly missing, are tactile sensations like smell, touch, things like this. And I think in the Sharespace project, I think it's quite interesting to go on this such a detailed scientific level to try to analyze like how people react, how tactile sensations actually translate to movement. But what I would like to see in the future, of course, would be more of these things. So to kind of even amplify, like to increase the immersion even more, that would be beautiful to see. And it's definitely, yeah, nice to see that that the research is going in this direction, and yeah, eventually we'll get there.
I have come to then the last of my questions, and after that we would like to talk a little bit about the next open call that we will have, and we'll also like to give you all the opportunity to ask some questions. But yeah, the Sharespace project, it's a lot of moving parts. There is tech development, there is research that is all a kind of also influencing how you work with it all together. And I just wanted to ask you one more time to maybe reflect on some of the opportunities or some of the challenges that kind of come with such a collaboration, and how you've kind of overcome something like this.
I think the three of us come from very different worlds and different backgrounds and different artistic practices, and the biggest thing I can say is that we gave each other patience in order to explain our point of view. Like Tara and I sat down, I showed them some video games because they hadn't really had the opportunity to play them. Like we sat and played Ghost of Tsushima, I think, in my lounge. Yeah, and like it's been a two-way street. Like it's been completely just being super open with each other, and yeah, allowing this patience in order to explain and to bring. In my head, you know, there's all of these leaps and things, and it's hard sometimes when you're working in collaboration to remember that this other person. These other people don't understand exactly the same, they don't have the same technical ideas. Like we have very different knowledge bases, and because we're all like almost titans in these three different fields, it's been really magical then, yeah, opening up these worlds with each other, and challenging, but really, really, really worthwhile. And yeah, I think that's it. Well,
I just can just say I agree with all of the things that Harriet said. And another thing that I learned, and I think it's just adds to the quality of the work, is this the definition of things that differ from each other. So how I define art is different. How Harriet defines design is different. How Matthew defines being involved actually and knowing about things is different than someone who is just like, oh, let's take this and just appropriate. So it's actual knowing and knowledge. So it was actually just not collaboration. It was every day. It was a lecture. And one of the things that I highly recommend for everyone who is interested in doing this kind of intersection of impossible skills meeting each other is to allow explosive discussions and not be pedagogical all the time, and not be holding back from conflict-looking conversations. These are the moments that make the work that is magical, and eventually we always end up having a nice drink and having fun with the co-workers, because you see the baby thriving and you just co-work the baby without going into details how we got the Pampers, how we got the water, how we got the milk. It's just done and the baby is happy. So I think being a bit crazy in terms of letting things out has just been very, very nurturing to our baby. Sharespace.
Maybe a really big challenge is to reduce things. You come up with this concept and you have all these moving parts and you think, okay, this is nice, this will work. And then on the way you discover, oh, there is a little part which actually has also this little part in it, and you have to do this for this, and it explodes. So reducing it to a meaningful, simple, concise concept, working prototype, end result is for me the biggest challenge.
I was going to say the same thing.
Okay.
He was going to say the same thing as what he said. Can we maybe switch back to the slides? Because one more reminder of the performance times. Please, we hope to see some of you there. Oh, I don't know what happened there. But it says, because for the next year, we're going to have another open call for artists. It's a new design. It made it itself. So we are basically going to do the same thing again next year. Of course, the Sharespace research and the Sharespace tech is kind of entering also into new phases. So what we are looking for in this next round of open call is also to look at embodied collaboration, also to look at synchronization, but especially we want to expand on this idea of remote participation. So we are looking for a concept that engages people that are outside of the deep space, somewhere completely different, and kind of engage them in a performance in this multi-hybrid space inside of the deep space, utilizing these Sharespace ideas. So there's an application period and there's more information, but now I would just like to open the floor to questions, and it can be to the artists themselves, it can be about their concepts, it can be about the open call, but yeah, if any of you have anything you would like to know, Harriet?
I just wanted to add that if anyone is thinking about applying, we applied for this and had no idea if what we wanted to make was even possible. And they also told us it might not be possible to do it, but we did it. So if you're on the fence of thinking whether you could or could not, should or should not, just do it, go for it. Like, the worst you do is you get here and nothing works, and then Daniel helps you fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, like in the crowd there is Daniel. He's been the technical lead and has been helping all these three pieces
Shout out.
come to life. So big thank you to Daniel. So is there anyone that would like to know anything? Great. I will. Oh, there's a. Sorry.
Okay. I'm curious about how you relate to human subjectivity through these embodied experiences, because I saw in your piece the non-human element in the character, and I'm just curious how you relate to this, human subjectivity in the embodiment.
Actually, yeah, I forgot to explain this a little bit. So the character you saw, we wanted to just show a little teaser. We didn't want to reveal too much about the piece. And so the character that you saw being developed was the boss character. Divi Sepid from the story is this white demon. It has, we spent a lot of time looking at really old references and finding a way that integrating my own, because I'm also making characters and things, like integrating this style, but to stay truthful to the references as well. And this is the character that actually our performer, who's also in the audience, will be embodying through motion capture. And so, yeah, we have a human controlling this creature, this white demon. And there's a lot of, so that, the base skeleton is the same as a human's. And through the extra appendages, so we have wings that are moving in response to the body, we have a tail that's also moving in response to this motion, and I'm not sure if that actually answered the question, but...
Yeah, totally agree. Just additional to that, so this character development has one aspect of what Harriet has been working on in the past years, which is characters that Harriet designs for in their artistic practice. But for me, it was and we had this discussion before with Harriet. It's the possibility of being something else than you are, and as a trans person, it's just like a gift to be able to play or be characters in virtual reality that you wish you could be, and it's a reductive way of reducing you to the biggest and most fantastic assets about your person, which takes away from you being contextualized by society, being read this way or being called that way, or being sexualized, being politicized. And for me, it was making characters universal, even though they are very specific. It's Shahnameh, but if you play it, if Elon Musk plays it, or if I play it, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you just emerge into a space and you become that character, and that is impossible in reality. So,
there's a question in the back there.
Hi, my name is Rob Arthur, and I'm very new to this, so this is like a real new thing for me. So it's a fundamental question, I guess, I'm asking for Sharespace about how you view, what your vision is for this development in a maybe slightly longer term. I'm hearing about iterative developments, which is great, but what about next generational elements, understanding that technology is moving very, very quickly? How do you strategize? How do you vision where you're going, how you're going to get there, and who you're doing it with?
Yeah. Maybe I will answer this question. I'm very, I think, here the Sharespace expert. I think the vision for Sharespace is indeed to improve the possibility of collaborating with people and utilizing avatars and have remote collaboration between different places and beings. And for now, that's why these real-world scenarios within the project are so important, because you can actually test them on the ground with people and to see if they work. So that was, for example, in the health scenario, they're just doing a usability study for now. They're seeing, can we use this? Do people using this technology enjoy using it? Do they think it's useful for them? But I do think that after this, we're trying to develop the applications in such a way that they have longevity, so that they can also exist outside of the outside and beyond this project. And I was wondering, maybe Roland, is that something you want to add to? No, great. Yeah, so I think they are organizing the research in such a way that it is going to continue after the project, and that's also why this ethics by design methodology that they engaged, where they were thinking about ethics and they were thinking about these fundamental questions throughout the process, because in this world of very fast developing technology, we don't have the time anymore to ask these questions afterwards. We have to ask them throughout, so that we can make sure that the development afterwards goes into an ethically sound kind of direction.
May I add one
Of course.
aspect? I think a very nice kind of part of this project is also kind of the interdisciplinarity, because of basically these real-world scenarios, artists and people that maybe aren't really that involved in these academic studies that research bodily movement and things like this, have to eventually be confronted with these concepts and try to bring it down to the ground. So what I'm trying to say is, on a meta level, there are so many different parties involved that everyone is kind of forced to try to communicate the essence of the project with each other, building, I guess, for the future, a valuable infrastructure of communication that can definitely maybe accelerate some development in these directions and maybe make it easier for less academically involved people in the long run.
Definitely. Some of the partners have also described that because it's such a transdisciplinary project, that every partner is kind of working outside of their comfort zone. There's not one partner that has all of the answers to the problems that we're facing when we're trying to do this. And also, if you are interested in kind of this framework of this ethical methodology, on Saturday morning there will be a keynote lecture here on this stage from the ethics partners who have been kind of through this project developed a policy plan for ethical development of emerging technologies. So that is something that is happening here on Saturday morning. Good. We have maybe time for one more question. But otherwise, if there are not any more, thank you to my speakers for being here. Thank you all for taking time on this extremely busy, overwhelming festival. And like we said, one more time, if you are interested in seeing any of these pieces, please come by. We would be happy to see you there. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your festival. Thanks, guys.